We're backstage with Ed Stetzer and Jerry Rankin from CENT, the conference, and I've got a couple questions for you guys. I know you are writing a book together, and I know, cool team.
It's a sign of the apocalypse.
A little bit, yeah. A little bit. Okay, now tell me a little bit about kind of what this upcoming book's about. I know that you both kind of been talking about some of the elements in it, so share with me a little bit of the main ideas.
Now let's see if we actually think it's the same thing.
Yeah, we're right on the same thing. Well, Tiffany, we've just published a book with Broadman Holman, Spiritual Warfare, The Battle for God's Glory. And we need to recognize we have an enemy that is opposed to evangelism, the church, the advancement of God's kingdom. But Satan's strategies demand secrecy and anonymity. And one of the things that overcomes them is just exposure. Awareness of it helps to give us the victory. And I've often said in global evangelization and church planning, I wish the only opposition we had to deal with was Muslim terrorists or government restrictions or persecution of believers. Piece of cake, we could deal with that. But Satan's subtle and clever. He deceives us through distractions from God's purpose, dissension, discouragement. In little ways, he keeps us from our faithful advance of God's kingdom. And of course, the book is about walking in holiness and claiming the victory that Jesus Christ has given us over the flesh, the devil, and the world, and so forth. But Ed and I are collaborating on a sequel, Spiritual Warfare and Missions, the battle for God's glory among the nations. Because God has said, I will be exalted among the nations, declare his glory among all the peoples of the earth. Satan doesn't want to see that happen. And we kind of start out with the reality of the warfare and the nature of God's vision and purpose of missions, and the nature of the enemy and Satan and how he works in devious ways. But basically highlighting, okay, keeping countries closed to the gospel. Satan's behind that, to keep the gospel from reaching those people. That's not working. The gospel's penetrated every nation. Well, his strategy to keep people groups hidden from our awareness. We didn't even recognize that was the essence of our task, until a few years ago. But that's not working. They're systematically being reached. Persecution of believers is just feeding the growth of the church. But the successful strategy that is working is creating an indifference among God's people about missions.
Getting people to believe lies, lies that really hinder the work of God. And so what we're trying to look at is to call them out, call them what they are, because we bought into an approach to the Christian life that's not engaged in God's global mission among the nations. It's not seeing transformation in our own churches, even our own communities. And so if we can push through those, and we got to name them. Part of the thing is naming them. It's recognizing this is not true. And then begin to say, all right, how do we overcome Satan's lies? How do we not buy into them and be restricted by them? Satan has not been able to thwart the work of God, but he loves to slow the work of God by getting people to believe wrong things, lies that he tells. And I think ultimately that's warfare to overcome and break through some of those lies.
Well, as Ed spoke on this morning, I mean, one of the myths that we've adopted is that unless you've had a burning bush or Damascus Road experience, you're exempt. Only an elite few are called to fulfill our Great Commission task, when in essence, it's a call to the church, the people of God. And we've even adopted that myth here in America to relinquish the task to professional clergy. When the only way our mission is going to be fulfilled is that grassroots massive mobilization. And another myth is to relinquish our mission task to the denomination or a mission agency, rather than to see a local church can be personally and strategically involved.
I was speaking at a little church in Mississippi. You're from Mississippi,
aren't you?
And they don't let me there much. And so I was driving down this little road.
Real cross-cultural experience.
It was. And you're New York Yankees. So I get down, I was in Buffalo at the time playing church, and I go by this, I'm going to this little church, our denominational church, down this little, by the time I get there, it's a little dirt road almost. But I pass this Pentecostal church on the way. And they've got this sign. Now the Pentecostal church probably could see 20 people inside. Little brick building, 20 people, with a sign that's 10 feet wide, 8 feet tall, and it's called the Pentecostal World Outreach Center. But they're right.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the
Yeah.
thing, is
Yeah.
that little church, and the church I was going to, we are given the Great Commission. And sometimes we just think, well, not us,
Yeah.
not now, not here, we're too little, we're too small, we're too weak. No, we're not. When Jesus gives the commissions, he gives the commandments, he teaches, he says these are for believers.
Yeah.
And every church is sent, every believer is sent, every church is a world outreach center. The only question is where and among whom. Now, we can't do it all. That's why we work together. That's why we need denominations. That's why, we have the International Mission Board I'm privileged to work for. But I think at the end of the day, what we need more is every believer to own it.
Yeah.
And then we'll work hard catching up and help people get engaged in mission.
Well, I like what you said this morning about we've been empowered to do this.
Yeah.
It's not looking at our limited resources or
That's right.
we're here and drawing a circle around our community. God has empowered us by his Spirit
That's right.
to reach literally to the ends of the earth. I heard David Platt from the Church of Brook Hills in Birmingham speaking recently, and been to Sudan on a mission trip training a group of little lay pastors in a very remote area. And he was talking to one of these that had probably never been out of his little community. And he said, Abdul, what is your vision for your life? And he looked at him with a big smile and said, I'm going to disciple the nations.
Wow.
You thought, yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I mean, how are you going to do that?
Yeah.
And he asked him about it. The guy said, why not?
Yeah, yeah.
Why not? Now, that's the kind of vision,
And it
that
might,
is
it
going
might
to
not be
drive
all.
us.
Together we'll get them all. And we may need some coordination. We may need to say, you may need to call A and B and say, where do I go to a people group? Because I don't know where a people group is.
Yeah.
But then, if this church or this, I'd like it to get down to small group level.
Yeah.
When small groups say, we're going to adopt this people group in Turkey, we're going to do this.
Yeah.